video. So why don't we get going for all of you on-time folks so you can get going. So basically, as I say, today is going to be about trying to bring together the things that we've been hearing and seeing at the big conferences so far. QCon, put on by InfoQ, and KubeCon within the CNCF have slightly different audiences and slightly different content, but they are both like luminary events in the space, and we are seeing trends across them. And Daniel actually attended both and was a participant in both in different ways. And so I think we're going to basically give the floor over to him shortly so he can go into detail on some of these key points that we have. So AI is, of course, one of the major topics we're going to talk about, but let's talk about the fact we're starting to see real impacts and what does that look like? So we're going to get some details on that because organizations are needing their platforms to catch up to where we're going with AI these days. And that's one of the big stories because it's not just about how does AI consume things from the platform, and also how do you provide things like AI to your organization in an effective way. So at the end of the day, we've got to still be building that platform as a product so that it can keep evolving with this very fast moving times. And but yeah, that's the highlight tour. But we're going to get into a lot more detail. So for those that don't know me, my name is Abby Bangser. I am a principal engineer at Syntasso, and I've been with us for 4 years now, which has been a great journey. I am around the ecosystem, so you may see me in the CNCF as an ambassador, as well as a team topologies advocate. So, Daniel.
Thank you very much, Abby. Yes, so I run product marketing here at Syntasso. I've only got 2 years tenure, Abby. I'm catching up with you, but you're always going to beat me, aren't you? But like both of us have got long careers building platforms, helping teams build platforms, and it's been an exciting ride at Syntasso with our Cratix and our Syntasso Cratix Enterprise. A lot of the takeaways I'm going to share today are definitely using a lens of platforms because that's what I know and love at the moment and what I've built sort of for many years. And again, many of us, all of us practically at Syntasso have to some degree sort of built platforms or led the building of platforms. So we do naturally kind of skew our views through that. But let's first off introduce the events because they are confusingly named. Honestly, I'm sure I'm going to slip up at least once in this presentation. QCon and KubeCon, very similar, right? But QCon, practitioner focused conference for the tech leaders, architects, and senior ICs. For me, there's lots of mini tracks within QCon. So QCon runs in London, it runs in San Francisco. There's a Boston event now and a Munich event. I've been going to these for I think 18 years. It's almost a 20-year-old conference, but I've been going for about 18 years. When I was a Java dev, and I was an aspiring architect, and then I moved on to being a CTO and building platforms. And there was always something for me at this kind of event. You know, you're chatting to an agile coach at 1 minute, and then you're chatting to someone that's like, you know, the creator of eBPF the next minute. And I kind of love that real juxtaposition of being able to chat to lots of very interesting people. So we both Abby and I have hosted tracks here. So just a full disclaimer, we know and love the QCon folks, and I've actually been like a co-chair in the past as well. So I've been knowing the QCon folks, the InfoQ folks for many years, and it's a little community that I'm very proud to be part of, and I've learned so much from over those years. KubeCon, a little bit younger, about 10 years old, but it's sort of the premier vendor agnostic cloud native conference. And this one, the EU version, obviously in Amsterdam, very much focused on practitioners. Obviously, like we're loving the AWS reInvents, the AWS summits, the GCP cloud events as well. There's Azure, do the Ignite, and a bunch of other things. So, you know, if you're all in on a vendor, those are equally interesting. But I really enjoy going to KubeCons because I get to chat to folks about the open source, about all the hyperscalers. And that's for me like a really interesting learning. Very much a cloud focus at KubeCon. That's the difference of QCon and KubeCon, I think. KubeCon is very much like a cloud native world, and that comes with trade-offs, right? In terms of I go a bit deeper about into cloud at KubeCon, but I don't get the breadth perhaps of some of these things. So these are both great conferences. We both learned a lot from them over the years. Particularly this year, I noticed things sort of very similar topics emerging from both conferences. Hence, when Abby and I were chatting, I was like, it's a webinar here in terms of bringing up some of these key thoughts and sharing with everyone and getting your feedback too, folks. As in, if you've, sort of seeing things at other conferences, we'd love to hear that too. Just like full disclaimers, Abby, you are currently a co-chair, been doing some amazing keynotes at KubeCon, and I was a track host for the very first London KubeCon back in like 2015, 2016, I think it was. My buddy Joseph Jack spun it up and then donated it to CNCF, so we've got a long history, particularly Abby's doing amazing work and the team in the CNCF space are connected with this as well, so long history with KubeCon. But into the vibes now. We're much better vibes these days, right? So QCon London, I was very lucky to put together, or have the privilege of putting together a track. I was hosting the Connecting Systems track. So lots of chat around APIs, and then increasingly around like things like MCP and A2A. Kind of, yeah, they're APIs, right? But they're kind of the next evolution around AI. So this really stood out. AI is a big deal. Right? Obviously, it is a big deal. But there was a lot of real world case studies from large companies, and these were like, highly regulated companies. I'm going to shout out Morgan Stanley in a moment. They were doing, they do billions of dollars over transactions, right? Billions of transactions potentially. And there's many other companies, the Walmart and big companies talking about things they were doing with AI in the platform, in the applications today. And for me, this was the first QCon. There was hints of it at QCon San Francisco last year as well, but the first QCon where the AI buzz was real. It was like, hey, we've changed our organization. This is the impact on the org. This is how we're now weaving AI into our SDLC, because like AI can arguably affect the whole software delivery lifecycle. And it was rather than just like, hey, we're trying out Claude, we're trying out ChatGPT, people were actually using it to build platforms, to operate platforms, to build apps and operate apps too. The vibes I got from QCon was that coding is no longer the bottleneck, right? But what about the platform? What about the product managers, platform product managers, and the architects? I think you can argue coding, like, still there's some element of like manual creation, the reviewing that brings its own challenges too. But there's very architecty and very sort of producty focused discussions going on at QCon, and the architects were sort of kind of nervous, but kind of not too, in that they were like, hey, I do boxes and arrows, I'm doing bigger picture, I'm doing governance across the org. Like, well, AI can't automate that, can it? I'm not so sure. Like, it was really interesting over the dinner conversations, the lunch conversations. Some sort of very progressive orgs were saying, "Hey, we're automating a whole bunch of this stuff," even highly regulated orgs. Others were being more sort of tentative in their approach. And I think it's what we see with our customers too. There's no right or wrong answer in terms of how you adopt AI. It's, you got to base it. Is your team ready? Is your org ready? Is your application ready? Is your platform ready? But just have a think, as in, if you can crank out code almost on demand now, be it token cost and all those kind of things. But what is the role of the product manager? And what is the role of the architect going to be like? It's an open question, folks, but there's lots of interesting discussions at QCon around how the role of the architect might become more of an agent orchestrator, for example, right? And that orchestration can be across the apps and the platforms too. Definite vibes again. We are biased, or I am biased in terms of my lens I'm looking for at the moment, but platforms do need to support the provisioning of AI. We heard lots of chatter around shadow IT or shadow AI popping up. People kind of YOLOing a Claude subscription, YOLOing a ChatGPT subscription, and then not the sort of artifacts and just even the actual subscription itself not being governed by the organization. So a lot of the more senior folks I was chatting to were like, I'm really happy for my team to be adopting AI, but I want it to be on our terms. I want visibility. I want security, right? Reliability. So I want to perhaps run a custom model like trained to our org. I don't want to share data with like a SaaS product. Again, totally fair, right? So there's lots of discussions around how do I serve large language models, open source ones, commercial ones? How do I maybe invest in small language models? There was lots of chatter around this. And sort of on the other side of it is, how do I consume the platform via AI? Again, people were very excited about using Claude Code in particular, but Codex from ChatGPT and many others do exist. The AI kind of stuff was getting more chat-based, more automated, but they were bottlenecking on infrastructure and on the platforms. So how do we now get the AI to call in and say, hey, I need a database. Hey, I need this thing. And not only does the AI get that, but they get that in a compliant and customized to your business kind of way. It's not just I want to pull something off the shelf. So all the problems that Abby and myself have been seeing at Syntasso for the last year or two, where our customers are saying, hey, I want to be able to vend databases, but custom to my org. They're doing that now, but just at like 10x the speed, because the agents are just going so fast. So lots of interesting chats around that. There was mentions of digital sovereignty as well. Again, EU skew probably here, right? But a global impact of all the challenging times we've got at the moment, and people are sort of putting in the borders a little bit and thinking like, how do I maintain a secure supply chain locally within within a geo, within a country, within a region, within a state, these kind of things, and how do I do digital sovereignty in clouds in terms of platforms as well. So we'll dive into this a bit more at KubeCon. because it became a bit more sort of real, I think, at KubeCon. But definitely at QCon, there was chats around this. Martin Kleppmann of amazing distributed systems work fame did a really good talk about local first design, and he was just saying it's now just another constraint. You want to think you don't want to be reliant on certain SaaS providers or certain geos where maybe like your business relationship is differing now. So this is the first time I've really heard it properly sort of pulled apart. Like digital sovereignty has been a thing for years, for sure, right? But people are really pulling it apart now and asking each other, what does it mean to be sort of like a sovereign in regards to our cloud, in regards to our platform? So great discussions were had there. A couple of I put a couple of pictures there. Birgitta did a fantastic keynote talking about AI, which we can dive into a bit more in a moment, and also like I think it was the eBay folks were doing really good chats around designing fast APIs, and then that led on to how do you design APIs for agents as well. So that's some links we'll share at the end of the talk. In terms of recommended talks, Birgitta's talk is fantastic. I do recommend that one. It's available on InfoQ already. You can go and watch that one. It's very much like of the moment, and probably in a month or two's time, because AI based, it will be out of date, right? So like she was very like upfront about like, hey, this is a snapshot like March when it was delivered of how AI coding assistants actually impact the SDLC now. I was really blown away by the Morgan Stanley folks. Now, just to own my bias here, Jim is my buddy. We wrote a book together, one of the books back here. So I've known Jim for years. He was one of the speakers with Andrea. But they really did share, sort of warts and all, the challenges they've had at Morgan Stanley going as fast as they can when they are dealing with high transaction volumes, very highly regulated, highly compliant kind of feeds, right, in terms of like the trades they're doing, these kind of things. And they basically they've invested a lot in API design over the years, but they were then moving it towards more exposing those APIs for the AI era. So talking a lot about MCP, exposing those like APIs over MCP, and also A2A, agent to agent as well. And they were baking the security and governance and auditability into the platform, which again was music to my ears, right? So yeah, I put a link there to a written summary of the talk. It was a really good talk. If you're building in a regulated environment, like the Morgan Stanley folks are very much at the vanguard of platforms and applications and APIs as well. The Spotify folks did an amazing talk. Hey, we love a bit of Spotify, right? But they were really saying about they were doing migrations and upgrades using AI, and it was like, and I was like, oh, another talk about using AI to do upgrades of like using Open Rewrite and a bunch of other tools to like migrate applications, to use the latest dependencies and these kind of things. But they made a really interesting observation in that often they were bottlenecked on actual platform changes. So they were changing the code, but they required platform changes. They required changes in the SDLC in terms of like the CI and CD. And they were often the kind of the patch to the application was just the simple part. It was how do you roll out the infrastructure supporting that patch? How do you make sure you're going through CI/CD, running tests and things? So they did a whole sort of discovery and a whole bunch of applications they created, support utility applications, which are now available. I think they're doing a commercial offering in relation to their Backstage portal as well. So do check it out. I've linked it through. But it was a fascinating exposition of like every change you do to the app affects the platform and vice versa. And the org, arguably. So you have to do these things in lockstep. And if you try and go too fast, like I think the Spotify folks went very fast in making app changes, and the platform became the bottleneck, which I thought was a fascinating insight. And final, I think it was JPMC did the multi-cloud strategy as a product problem, treat it like one. Again, music to my ears, right? They were saying you're building products, whether it's platforms, whether it's apps, you've really got to project manage, product manage these things. So if you're building like again highly regulated platforms, that talk was a really good talk to catch as well. I think that moves on then to KubeCon vibes. So KubeCon, again, bigger architecty type audience. With KubeCon, AI was still a big deal. It was more IC focused for sure, right? Definitely. But the AI was there in all kind of aspects of the infrastructure as code, of the platforms, and also of the apps on top. But digital sovereignty was really front and center. There was, I think, the day 2 keynotes, I want to say, were very much focused. As I sat there, it was pretty much an hour and a bit of folks talking about digital sovereignty. Again, case studies from banks, case studies from governments. This is a thing that definitely in the CNCF, in the cloud native world, people are really thinking about. So thinking a lot about not only the cloud infrastructure being sovereign, but how do you vend a platform on top of that as well. So yeah, really interesting stuff. I've shared some LinkedIn posts there. I tried to summarize it in our blog as well. So if you want to go a bit deeper into what this digital sovereignty means, I highly encourage you to check out those things. There was a definite vibe about moving from platform tooling to platform capabilities as well. I mean, but when I first started going to KubeCon, like literally the first ones, it was all like storage, networking, raw Kubernetes kind of things. And then obviously over the years, we had CRDs come in, the whole ecosystem around Kubernetes has just exploded, and it was really refreshing. We were sponsoring KubeCon and Platinum Day as well, and it's really refreshing at the booth to have conversations with folks where they weren't asking about tooling, they were asking about capabilities. Sure, everyone loves Backstage. There's Port, there's Cortex, there's many other things out there as well. Everyone loves Terraform, Crossplane, other things. But they were saying, how do I combine all these things and then actually release a platform, give a platform to my developers? And there's a definite tension that we've had this in sort of customer calls recently of people mashing together, say things like portals or APIs and infrastructure as code, but not worrying too much about that glue layer, the invisible glue we often talk about, the platform orchestration layer. Now, again, obviously we're a bit biased because we're working on Kratix, which literally is an enterprise platform orchestrator, but trying to build that all yourself is really tricky. There's many things you need to think about in terms of how you expose these capabilities, how you fleet manage them over data and beyond, how you allow the whole org to contribute into these platform capabilities. Because if you want to be successful, you've got to have a whole ecosystem, as Rachel Wonnacott said in our last webinar. There was really interesting discussions around this, and I was really pleased to see the folks at KubeCon recognizing now we're sort of, yes, tools are important, but the capabilities are more important, and how they plug into the wider org is where kind of the discussion felt like it was at, particularly in Platinum Day. The folks I was chatting to at the booth there were real smart platform operators, and they were asking us a lot about platform capabilities, and it was really nice because Abby's got even more depth you're going to go to in a moment, Abby, right? And your keynote there. But day two challenges are coming up a whole lot. A lot of people were sort of building their own platform, but then falling down when they couldn't manage it over time. They couldn't roll out upgrades across the whole fleet. They couldn't enable people to contribute en masse. So that's the trade-offs with the build versus buy thing, right? Day two is where you're going to spend more of your time. It's named day two, but really it's day 2, 3, 4, 5. We often say day 2000, right? It's a lot more day twos than there are day ones. So yes, do care about how you create your platform and roll it out, but think about those longer term challenges. We had some great conversations. I'll doff the cap to the Lego folks, Mads and team. I had some great conversations with them about how they were building out their sort of day two scheme with platforms. They were investing heavily in AI as well. There was lots of chat around guardrails and policy challenges. Again, people sort of spinning up their platform. Like Kubernetes, like it's almost a given now. They put some layer on top, but they were struggling with how do I make sure that the guardrails and policy challenges are standardized across the organization. And it's a constant balance with centralization and decentralization. I think some folks went a bit over the top with everything's got to go through like ServiceNow, everything's got to go through Jira, like all ticket driven. And there's the other approach where it's like YOLO, everyone just does their own thing to policy. And I think like an enterprise can't be either of those extremes. In fact, I know it can't be either of those extremes, right? Yes, you get pockets of shadow IT. Yes, you get pockets of highly, constrained things, but you want to be able to sort of go fast, but safely, right? So there was lots of challenges around that as well, lots of chats. And we heard literally people saying to us at the booth about I'm building a platform as a product, which is great because like Colin, Paula, Chris, our founders have been saying this for like I don't know 20 years, right? They've been building platforms for a long time, and that's why I'm bought into like what they've been doing many years ago. But it's really nice now people understand what we mean when we say platform as a product. They even ask us about platform as a product. Hey, I know I'm building a platform. My product has got to have customers. My product has customers. They are developers. They are the QA folks. They are the architects. How do I tailor my platform to them? And it's great having those discussions with folks. I'll tip my cap in particular to Hat, who's our PM or product owner, product manager. She has great conversations in terms of being able to drive out the real unique constraints and requirements from a platform. Like she's done a lot of work at ThoughtWorks doing that. So conversations at the booth around this, which is fascinating. Talk recommendations. I definitely got to tip the cap again to Kat and Nitesh from Veeam did an amazing talk and the day two hangover, what to do when the platform party ends. There were some really good quips that Veeam was sharing. Nitesh from Veeam was sharing like some of the wins they'd had with building a platform and some of the challenges. Very open, honest kind of conversation. Kat was sharing her ideas around kind of the product ownership side of this as well. Learned a ton from that talk. It was really good. On the AI vibes, I know obviously I'm a bias here. Shane's one of our teammates, right? Shane did an amazing job. Lightning talk about how he built an MCP server that was working with Kratix, and he learned a bunch. And like the takeaways basically were giving an AI some structure, so that's something like Kratix, where you can have like abstractions that are related to the platform capabilities, and it's much more effective than if you just give the AI kubectl. as an example. Up-leveling those abstractions, providing kind of clear guidance, documentation, enables the AI to just build platforms and maintain platforms much more effectively. Shane said it better than I have there. Watch that talk; it's available online. He's done a blog for us already. He did this like 6 months ago, so he was totally at the vanguard when Claude Code was bubbling up. Definitely worth checking out. Our final talk recommendation in this space, May the Flux be with you. Great, there's banter all the way through this one. Great talk from Joel and the crew from NatWest at FluxCon. They did mention Gradix, they gave a shout out, so I'll own my bias in this one as well. But again, we heard really good things. People were coming up chatting to us at the booth. Hey, I saw Joel's talk. I saw folks chatting about what you did, what they did with Flux and with Gradix. And it was a real fun talk and lots of great takeaways. Again, NatWest, right? Big four bank in the UK, highly regulated, amazing teams there, like all the interesting challenges, all the interesting recipe, the ingredients for the recipe were there, and they kind of showed some of their secret sauce which was behind that recipe. So that's a really good talk too. So I think that leads nicely on, Abby, to know like you did this amazing keynote on the final day, which like all the conversations we'd had over the past few days, it was like AI was bubbling up and platform capabilities and day two. And I was smiling all the way through because I kept saying like, hey, you want to stick around to the final day? Abby's doing a keynote that literally brings all this stuff together. And here we are, right?
And that's the thing, is like taking a second to see how that keynote came to be, is that it didn't get written the day before the event, right? And sometimes that's the hardest part about conferences, is we're applying to speak months and months in advance. And as a keynoter, I had a little more freedom to wait till sort of summer or I'm sorry, to like the new year, so into kind of January, February, to pick exactly what topic I was going to speak on. But it still is months ahead of time that these are sort of getting set in stone. And so, how do we get the right topic to show up and still be inspiring and interesting and at the forefront at an event, right? Well, I think it's because we were seeing it bubble up when we were in Atlanta in the autumn. So in Atlanta, I was quite excited to see that I was speaking about the idea of platforms as a marketplace on the keynote stage, but actually there were 3 or 4 other talks across the different tracks that were having the conversation about what does it look like to scale the creation of platforms. Platform creation is difficult right now because we have gone from centralized ops to decentralized DevOps, back to centralized offerings, but we're also going back to centralized teams creating those offerings, which is putting us kind of back in that same bottleneck position. But nobody likes to go backwards in time. So, how do we get the centralization we're looking for, which reduces the cost of management and increases the control to be able and the coherency of that platform experience? So, we're not spending time rebuilding things across our teams without having the bottlenecking that drove us away from centralized ops before. And this inner sourcing marketplace is starting to coalesce into something in the autumn when we were in Atlanta, which was QCon North America. And over the months following that, I was having conversations both internally at Syntasso as well as around the industry where people were saying, we want people to contribute. We like this idea of marketplaces, but how do we get people to contribute in an effective way? And so what came from this is the design of factors for platform capabilities. So this is a piece of work that myself and the team here at Syntasso put together and then started asking people about over the last couple months. And we got I think it was at the end a little over 30 different people who had come through and made comments and shared their stories and shared their experiences to refine the ideas that we had written and to reinforce that this is something that we need to do as an industry, is come together with an idea of how do we write an effective platform capability that can be offered to our organizations. And what's interesting about this is that because of this work and as it was sort of being discussed, it got picked up by the CNCF Platforms Technical Community Group. So it's a group I've been a part of for many years now. I was a co-lead of the group a couple of years ago when we worked on the platform engineering maturity model, and I was a part of the authorship team of the platform white paper, the original platform white paper back in 2023. I think that was released, or 2022. So this is a group I've been a part of for many years, and so the fact that they see value in taking forward this idea and making this something that the group is kind of solidifying as a shared understanding, I can see how powerful that will be, because I've seen how powerful the white paper and the maturity model has been in helping organizations wrap their heads around the future of platforms. So it's very exciting. We have just kind of closed off the request to join the author team, the contributing team. We're going to grab a handful of those folks together and put our heads to get down for the next couple months to refine this content, extend it, make it more approachable for people, all of the great things that community does when it puts its hands on these kinds of content. And then there'll be an open review process over the summer before release, hopefully in the kind of late summer, early autumn in time is our target. But the thing that I want to call out as you see these factors sort of on the page here is they do give a bit of a shout out to the 12 factor app that was released by Heroku back in 2011. And there's a reason why it's discussed as a factors, is a reason why it's numbered. We have lots of discussions on if that's going to stay as a name, right? So take all of this as a version 001 going into the community writing process. But the value of understanding that connection is that the 12 factor app, which helped people understand what made an application easy to run on top of a platform and be able to fully leverage the capabilities of that platform, never tried to control the platform itself. So never tried to control who was running that platform, whether it's Heroku or Cloud Foundry or any other of the now expanding market there with Fly.io and lots of other more modern ones, Vercel and things. But it also never tried to control the product that was running on the platform. It didn't tell you it had to be written in Java, didn't tell you, it had to be end user facing, that had to have a UI, nothing about any of that either. It really focused on how do we interface between the product that you want to build, good, bad, or indifferent, written in any language you want, money making or not, and the infrastructure you want to run it on, the platform you want to run it on. That is the factors as they've been written. And what we're doing with this list is we're doing that same exercise, but for contributing to the platform, because the marketplace is expanding what requires to build a platform. We need these contribution models. And we want to talk about that interface between however you want to write your capability, however you want to combine all of these into a shared platform. The capabilities need to follow these kind of design principles to be effective on top of a platform. And that's where we're going to be hoping to draw the line as we come together with this group. So as you can see, there's some links here. So the initial paper that I was speaking about in the keynote is available for viewing. That is probably going to get locked as we move into the next phase, because it is just an early design kind of prototype of this document as we kind of move towards creating something for the community. And you should be looking forward to some reviews for this over the summer if you're interested in providing your experiences and feedback into it. And hopefully a paper out in your hands by the autumn for use in your organizations to hopefully help you build those scalable platforms. So
Super, thanks, Abby. Yeah, I mean, I was very much a consumer of the original 12 factors as a Java dev at the time, and I was doing a bit of Ruby on Rails as well. Like, it genuinely did rock my world. And I remember having lots of discussions on all the consultancy gigs I was doing of like, hey, can we adopt all 12 factors? And was it all models are wrong, some are useful? I got a lot of value out of the 12 factors. Yes, you can debate some of the factors, so I'm sure you're going to do the factors here, but that model just progressed the industry along nicely, right, in terms of some very clear guidelines when you're writing like apps that were going to be deployed onto things like PaaSes, like Cloud Foundry, like Heroku. Super useful. So very excited about that. Excellent, excellent. Shall we move on? I think that is wrapping up, Abby, right? We're doing pretty good on time. I appreciate everyone's probably super busy at the moment. So yeah, just to wrap up, AI coding assistants are having a real impact. We saw this at both events, on the keynote stage, but also in the chats we had in the hallways, the chats we had at the Syntasso booth, and folks like almost everyone was asking us, what's your AI story? How do you help with AI? So it was real. People are getting real value. The biggest challenge around organizations and platforms catching up. I think there's just been so much progress made, particularly sort of around like the beginning of the new year time. Claude Code in particular was really pushing things through, and I've seen Codex and others catch up now as well. But people are realizing, as I'm playing around with it, Java apps, I sort of wrote over a weekend a couple of Java apps that would have taken me weeks to do before. Is that powerful? If you know what you're building and have the background in software engineering in particular, it does probably help with some of the vibe coding. But we're seeing at the enterprises the organizational structure. How do we change the SDLC? How do we change our product requirements? How do we do QA? This stuff is all changing now, and the platforms again have got to support the speed you want to go at. And one thing I like, Colin, channeling our boss here, CEO Colin, he's often saying that if you're struggling with certain things in your platform now, it's only going to get 10, 100, 1,000x worse with AI. You can go faster, sure, but like if your platform's a bottleneck, that ain't going to change. Or if the things are going wonky in your platform, you're not customizing the platform capabilities to your business, or you're not applying observability, security, governance, like do you really want 10, 100, 1,000 more of these things out in the wild? Like it sounds like such a no-brainer when you think about it, but we are seeing this a little bit, and everyone's getting so excited with the code. You've got to think about software delivery. Coding is only a small part of software delivery and just business in general, right? Platforms must support the provision, the providing of AI capabilities. We definitely hear big enterprises, they want to own their own LLMs, they want to run OSS LLMs, that kind of thing. SLMs comes up as well. So think about that, applying your guardrails, applying your visibility. The way we look at it is AI, an AI model is just another platform capability. That's why things like Kratix, whether you're vending a database, whether you're vending a whole environment, or whether you're vending an LLM, it's the same kind of principles we apply to actually that platform capability. So we encourage you to think in the same way. We're also seeing AI consuming from the platform, as I mentioned, just a moment ago as well. So, like Shane's talk really helped me understand that providing structure around your platform, not just giving it access to kubectl, not just giving it access to a CLI, but thinking about the API design, thinking about how you might want to expose that over MCP, for example, which is exactly what Shane did. There is a bunch of lessons he's learned the hard way that check out his talk so you don't have to make the sort of same mistakes, right? Again, structure is the key here. That's what I learned the most from Shane. Thinking about the API design of your platform, thinking about how that connects to the right abstractions gives the LLMs a lot more context to work with rather than just YOLOing kubectl commands. Time to it's funny over the sort of my 20-year career, I guess. Like, I bumped into this platform as a product philosophy quite early on with Cloud Foundry and things, and Heroku again, and I liked it then, and I still like it now. It's just things have changed. Sure, the way the languages we use, the way we provision databases, the rise of cloud, the rise of Kubernetes, of course, and things like that. They've all changed the tooling, but actually the way of building a platform for end users in mind, customized to your business, is fundamental, and it just doesn't change. I'm convinced of that. I'm actually with Syntasso. We collaborated, myself, Abby, with Colin and Kat, collaborated on a platform as a product report. You can see it above me here, shameless plug. You can get it on the website if you haven't got a copy already. But we've tried to. It's only a small little report. You can read it hopefully in a lunchtime or two, but tries to encapsulate. Even with AI or without AI, building a platform as a product is really important. And I think, like, just to show we have some fun as well, Kat did a great series of pictures from our QCon. This is the Cortex party, and our friends at Instant IO, other places. We love what they're doing, so they invited us along to their party, and we had some good fun at there. There was lots of great chats at the booth. So again, check out the Syntasso LinkedIn channel to find out sort of more of our pithy observations over the 3 days at KubeCon, or 4 days at KubeCon. And you can check out what we did at Platform Engineering Day as well. Because again, if you're a platform engineer, that day is your day, and there was a lot of great stuff to take away from Platform Engineering Day. I think at that point, Abby, I've got a sort of shameless plug for Kratix and Syntasso Kratix at the end. If you're interested in building a platform, you're struggling with building platform orchestration frameworks, check us out. Please do reach out to myself, Abby, personally. Go on to syntasso.io, have a look around, kick the tools on Kratix. It's an OSS tool as well as a commercial tool as well. Any questions you got, hit us up in any way you like. We're on LinkedIn, we're on Slack, we're pretty much everywhere. We're in the CNCF and KubeCon Slacks as well as individuals. So I'll pause and say thanks. Let me have a quick look if we've got any questions. We're not doing two at a time, maybe one or two. Let me scroll down through. What we got? We got platform. So Jane said, platform engineering continues to evolve quickly. What new patterns or approaches stood out as genuinely gaining traction across teams?
Yeah. I think that it maybe shouldn't feel so surprising, but I think API first and reconciliation loops, things that are very common to be spoken about in the CNCF community, is now permeating the platform space. And I'd be interested if you had any of that at QCon, but I definitely think that idea that the patterns of having things be an API that steps away from implementation details, regardless of what infrastructure as code you might choose to use, um, and but yet still leveraging that same value of what that Kubernetes brings with making sure things don't drift. I heard a lot of drift detection and
Yeah,
remediation
yeah.
conversations, and that's that reconcile loop in Kubernetes. So I think those are two patterns that I'm seeing a lot, maybe followed by just when you, as soon as you start getting towards API, you start also getting towards composability. Maybe it's, I don't know which caused which, because there was a lot
Mm.
of conversation about the idea of golden bricks over golden
Oh yeah, yeah,
paths,
yeah. Mm,
right? So get composable little bits that are golden or proven within your
mhm,
organization, and then compose those higher level paths. That's something that's been around for about a year now, but I think I'm seeing it more in action. So when you
mhm.
talk about like what is actually gaining traction and really kind of cementing in, it's that idea of APIs that can then be composed, is something I'm seeing more in action in the last few
Big
months,
plus one
I'd
to
say.
that, Abby. Yeah, a couple of like, so I've hat tipped the Lego folks already, but I mean it's ironic, like Lego as a company, right? With the bricks, they are literally building composable platforms. So like Mads and crew have talked about, I think on Platform Engineering Day in Atlanta, I want to say, or maybe one of the earlier KubeCons, and I did a talk, again shameless plug, in Atlanta around composability of platforms. So yeah, a great shout, and I definitely think echoing my Morgan Stanley buddies again as well, like they were very much saying like our AI strategy is really an API strategy. We're building out fundamental APIs and then layering on AI on top. Then they're trying not to just kind of YOLO the AI. It's like our APIs have guardrails, controls, integrate tightly into the platform. They're working in the FinOps, so the financial services, the part of CNCF spin-offs as well. So FinOps is very interesting. The Calm framework. My buddies at Morgan Stanley are talking a lot about the Calm framework, and there's sort of overlap with what we're looking at in Kratix there too. But they were saying the same thing: APIs, strong governance, strong compliance, baked in, and then composability for the win. 100% Abby.
Nice.
Yeah, yeah. I've got let's have a look. One more question. Let's we go. Joe said many organizations are still struggling with platform adoption. What signals did you see around what's working or not working when it comes to getting developers to actually use a platform?
Oh, I guess, I sound like a broken record. I know you were calling our founders old and saying they've been doing this for many years, but I feel like a broken record as well about the fact that if you don't solve real problems for people, they're not going to use
Yeah,
the
yeah,
platform, right? And so, I think that product mindset, not just in the sense of talking to customers, but actually chipping away at the real problems they're facing is the most important, because what I found is it's quite like a flywheel. Uh,
mm,
where if you don't get people thinking your platform is going to provide them value, they don't go looking at your platform
yeah, yeah.
for the things that they need. And
Yep.
so sometimes, it's really, I've been there. My platform does that. Why aren't you using it? Oh, I didn't realize. Okay, well then
Yeah,
that, like, whose quote unquote fault is that, right? It's no one's fault. It's a disconnect between the needs and the offerings, whether it be a marketing disconnect, or whether it be a feature disconnect, or whether it be just a consumption model disconnect. Like, it might be that somebody's looking for something in the CLI and it's not there, and you're telling them to go to a browser, and they don't want to be there, right? So um, yeah, so in the way of adoption, I think the big thing is getting quick wins of supporting people, so that they are creating that virtuous cycle of looking to your platform. That's where
yeah.
we're seeing people really pick up steam with their platform, is once they kind of create that virtual cycle of people wanting to go to the platform for help. So
Plus one. I mean, as you were saying that, I was thinking I had some great conversations in the booth about voluntary adoption. Do you know what I mean? People
mhm,
putting their platforms out. Discoverability, I kind of heard you say there, which is a big
yep.
aspect of it. Folks, we heard not just Backstage. I mean, Backstage is crazy popular, as are many other portals, but we had a lot of people using AI to do discovery. So things like MCP to actually do discovery of the platform, rather almost like bypassing the portal, which is interesting. But then voluntary adoption, because we definitely heard from a few companies, yes, have to mandate certain things. I totally get it, but the ones that could at least sort of notionally like create some voluntary or drive voluntary adoption were the ones that that signal was good. Because we talk a lot about, again, platform as a product, and some of the pushback I get occasionally is like I've got to adopt this product. It's not like I've got, I go to buy a phone, I can do Android, I can do iPhone, I can do whatever, right? As in, like, the sort of the pushback I often get is like there's only one consumer of this product, right? It is like the rest of the folks in the organization. And I do sort of hear some of those issues, but as you said, Abby, chat to your customers. Definitely in my consulting career, my 10-year consulting career, like a good chunk of the work I was doing was actually saying, like, the thing you're building, have you talked to the users of it? And particularly platforms, people were like, why would I do that? I'm just going to reinvent the cloud or whatever. I'm like, do your developers want the cloud? And they were like, oh, well, actually, we should go and chat to them. So I think actually going chat to folks, like, it totally makes sense. And then building and like quick ones. You and I think quite like Abby on this one. Getting those quick wins, making it visible. Like, again, a lot of folks, Spotify are very good at this as well, doing internal boot camps, sharing all this knowledge out. Many of the Nordics do amazing work in general. Actually, they're very good at this thing. Many of the Nordic companies. So I think those are my kind of things. If you get voluntary adoption, people coming back, it's a good sign.
I think, yeah, just to add to the fact that it's voluntary, but it can't be in some organizations. One of the things that I point to here is that you can make it as voluntary as possible by externalizing the requirements. And that is a value add for your platform as much as for that perception of choice and perception of value for your users. If you have certain things that you have to do because of compliance requirements for your platform, that's why people have to use your platform. If you can put checks in place that are visible to your users that you are adhering to these requirements, these are the things that make your platform compliant, then you can use that against your own platform, which helps them understand what value you're bringing. And you can also offer them as a service.
Mm.
Well, you can bring your own platform. Here are all the validations you need to pass. And if somebody wants to invest in passing those on a different platform, then they can, because they are meeting, company requirements, and most leaders, if they heard somebody was rebuilding something that was already working elsewhere in the org, would have a
Mm.
challenge there. So it just starts to build, make that voluntary more real, I think. And I think that's really valuable as well.
Yeah, big plus one for that. But it comes back to what you were saying, Elizabeth. So the golden paths, the golden bricks. There's the dirt road analogy that some folks have heard use. Like, you can do your own thing, but you got to blaze your own trail. Like, do you really want
Exactly.
to do that? And I like the way you said it, because we definitely see this in our customer chats, right? As in, do you really want to be reinventing the wheel? Like, no, you were like standardizing, reusing, that kind of stuff. Yeah, love it.
Yeah.
Excellent, Abby, excellent. I think that's pretty much. Let me just go back to our two of you there. Thank you so much, Abby, for joining me here. I really appreciate that. The shout out to the whole team at Centassa. We have lots of good banters and lots of good chats around, like, what are we seeing at these various conferences, and we like to share it with you folks as well. So let us know if it's useful for you. We always appreciate the feedback. And until that, we'll see you probably next time at a webinar or next time at a conference. Thanks for joining us, folks.
Thanks for sharing, Daniel. Bye.